request.
Can I play your guitar?
Through Wonderwall. I'm a good singer. Can I sing with you?
Oh, give us another. Come on, mate. One more song.
One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song. One more song.
What was the music scene like back then in Preston? Were places a lot busier generally?
Yeah, there was such a. Well, we play in the what's that rehearsal place we play in now? What's it called?
It's Gem Studios, I think, is the actual name for it.
So that's pretty much where it's ended up now, and it's really good to see. I was really. Because the mill, you know, it's a bit cold and damp these days, you know. But at the time, you had all sorts of bands there. You had acid jazz, you had classic rock, loads of really. I mean, we had Zentrix that would practice there. So Zentrix were a sign band at the time,
right.
you know. So there was a guy called Dougie Daggers. and he's
what a name!
What a name! And he fit his name perfectly. God bless his soul. But again, these characters were around, and it was a different scene. It was a different scene. It wasn't as much of your acoustic solo artists and things like that. There was much more of a push for getting a band together and writing your own thing, and just loads of good covers bands around though. Really good cover artists, good solo. What's I can't remember his name now, but there's a couple of really good songwriters around in Preston at the time as well. And the Lamb was like full of jazz, funk, blues bands like every week.
And would that be maybe in the week as well, like, because you don't get as much weekday music maybe now, do you?
My dad would take me out, you know, for a Coke, you know, because I was like 16, 17, so he'd like literally take me out on a Tuesday, and he said, "Oh, free parking around tonight." And I mean, free parking. There's a guy called Norman Helm on bass, and another local sort of, to me, a legend, you know. Great bass player, unbelievable, but he would always be in these funky, really, you know, or I mean, to be honest, he could play anything, but there was all these different musicians that would play, funk, jazz, you know, really good stuff, you know.
So, like, obviously, we've asked about like the types of bands around. Really, there's only sort of one venue, I suppose, in Preston that's really known now, and that's the Ferret.
Yeah.
How many of that type of venue was there for original music? Because obviously, you were mainly playing.
What was good when we were playing with Blowback, you could, so that you were round the corner from the Lamb, so it wasn't even like you didn't have to pay to get in. It's just a pub, so you could just literally walk between two pubs that were like within spitting distance, and you would have a live band on Friday and Saturday night for definite. But they would have bands on all week. So you just walk up and down and just go and have a pint in there, go and see what's going on. You know, and so they were the two main small venues. But then you had, I played the Students' Union, I think once. That was with a band called Junkyard Angels. I forgot to mention them. God, Loz will be kicking me for that. Yeah, but that's a band that I started with from school, and they were like what would you call it? Have you heard of Queensryche?
Queensryche, I've heard of them,
kind of glam sort of sort of rock, you know, but again, writing their own stuff. Yeah, you know, like this is what it's all about.
All this was like all the original music then was sort of going on in pubs as well. Like,
but I mean, we were lucky that there was. I think it was to push, like when the record companies, I think, wanted to push the new indie scene, like right at this should have been 93, 94, and the Heineken Music Festival, they had it 2 years running, And we had Oasis in Aberdeen Park, but this is before anybody knew who they were. The Verve played, and then, but we had Carter, Unstoppable Sex Machine, and all these other, you know, Boo Radleys. You had a Boo Radleys,
right?
You know, Wake Up Boo.
It's a beautiful morning.
Wake Up Boo. Yeah, but so there was, but I don't know. I still think the music's healthy now.
It's just different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a different scene. It seemed a little bit more accessible, and there seemed to be. We know that the lockdowns really sort of like snubbed. There's embers, there's embers still burning, but it's really. I mean, the whole hospitality industry took a massive.
But it's interesting to me how, like you were saying, Lee, like you know, original music was accepted in pubs, because now if you go and have a gig, say, I don't know, at the Rose and Crown down the road, you can rarely have a full night of original tunes. You know, you've got to do the covers and you've got to do the generic covers as well. I wonder why. I wonder when was that tipping point? When you know, I wonder why that is. Why people don't want to hear original stuff now and they did back then. I don't know. Is it to do with the attention span again and stuff? I don't know.
It's an hard one because I think it's funny. I was listening to a podcast the other night about the fact that there seems to be, like, I mean, I don't remember the 50s or the 60s, but I do remember going from the 70s to the 80s, 90s, and then into the 2000s. Yeah. And there was a demarcation. You had like a run up from the 70s, which was led by punk, which then brought about a new wave, which then demarked. You went straight into the 80s, which then gave it a totally different feel. 90s, you're coming up with rave, and then you're coming up with. You had, I mean, when Nirvana dropped. And then you had Pearl Jam, and you had all these bands when they dropped. It literally made a huge splash. Yeah. You know, like you had these, but leading up to that, you had, I mean, Bon Jovi sounded really heavy to me at the time. You know, like, whereas now it's kind of you know, well, I mean, I got into all sorts of bands since, like, But I think going into the 2000s, there's been a different way of producing things, and I think it's just with the technological age. I think it's just it's kind of blended things a little differently. Yeah,
I think especially with like punk and stuff, it's like fashions follow that, culture follows that. Whereas with maybe music now and stuff, there isn't that movement, is there? Like you say,
there's not, and I think. There is this thing where we've got screens in front of us, and so we listen to music differently, we engage with it differently. Although it's, you know, to be honest, I don't go out as much and see live bands, but when I do, it's still there. Yeah, it's still there. It's the whole thing is still there. Yeah. It's still alive and kicking. Yeah. There's some amazing bands out there that I've never heard of.
I think the thing is as well, Lee, I watched the interview with Frank Zappa. You can find this on YouTube, and there's a bit in there where he's sort of talking about the music, and this was maybe in the 80s, and he sort of said, do you know what? You used to have these old guys running the music business that knew, like, that didn't really understand what was going on. They'll go, we don't know what it is, but we'll take a chance on it. And then you all of a sudden, in like the late 60s, 70s, maybe even the 80s, young hip guys started coming in and would tell you that's not what the kids want. And it was labels dictating then to what was going out. Whereas in the 60s, you could literally have a boy band go number one week. The next thing, it was a 7-minute prog song as number one.
Well, as well though, the whole scene was. I think there was so many more dance halls. The act of going out was people actually danced, and they also there was a circuit.
Yeah.
You know, I can remember talking to a guy I was at a computer course learning how to use Windows. It was this new thing. And but he was talking, he obviously knew I was into bands, and he was talking about, he said, we used to just literally, there was a funny story there. We stands in jail and vans. Funny anyway. But but he was saying that you'd go and chip in, buy a Bedford van or a tranny van,
right? Yeah.
And you'd just go and hit the road.
Yeah.
And there would be like a few venues in every town because that's where everybody went.
Yeah.
To hear the music, or you'd have a jukebox, but that'd be in the cafe. So things have they've come on so much.
And how did Yeah, go on, carry on.
Sorry, go on. No, carry on.
But it's interesting. So, did you go through? So when you were with your band and you're booking gigs, how did you get the gigs? Did you go in with a CD or a tape?
Yeah.
So did you go through agencies?
No, well, we tried agencies, but it was more. We did a few gigs in Manchester, so it was more that we got a couple of Friday nights. We played the Night and Day a couple of times when I was with Stans in jail, but it was it's a decent venue. We got and again, like you say, we're an original band. Nobody knew really who we were, but everybody knew that the Night and Day was a good night out. Yeah. So if you're there on a Friday night, you'd have an audience. You'd have people that would come and check you out. But I suppose the main things with us was Wednesday, Thursdays was like showcase nights, Roundhouse. Is it the Boardwalk? Is it Boardwalk in Manchester?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, still going that venue.
The Star as well. Is it the Star? See, it's all changed now. But there's or is that in Blackpool? I can't remember. But there was a few venues that would put 4 or 5 bands on, and you just get your half an hour slot.
I see, and try and impress sort of.
And you just go and and so you'd all play to each other's mates basically.
Yeah.
We did a couple of them in London. We tried it, like our hand in London, but it's the same crack. It's all very long shot stuff, to be honest. Yeah. You'd make a demo, you'd go to a studio somewhere in Liverpool. We'd recorded a couple of times in Manchester. Say a weekend of 2 sort of 10-hour sessions. Got a demo together. And then you try and push that. It's that kind of.
It's tough going. Yeah.
It can be tough going. But it's I don't know. It's the fun in it.
Definitely,
I think it's so much easier now, but it's also very fragmented, very split, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an oversaturation, isn't it? You can just ping things to people, can't you?
But you can ping it out there, there's a freedom to that.
There's a massive freedom. So was there anything with any of